All right, folks, episode 7 is in the books. Here we are, gonna talk about it, every little piece. I'm Peel.
And I'm Travis, and this is the Travis and Peel Show.
All right, my man, another week has come, another week has gone, and another episode of WandaVision is in the books. This one obviously brought some new elements to light, answered a good amount of questions in this little adventure that we're on, and here we are, man. What are your initial thoughts?
Initial thoughts. I gotta tell you. So, right off the bat, not my favorite episode. Not a bad episode, just not my favorite. I feel like there were some wasted arcs. I felt like there were some promises not kept, but maybe they haven't been kept yet. That remains to be seen. And I think it had a strong ending, a strong finale to the episode, a great finale to the episode. I would argue probably one of the better endings, even though the episode wasn't technically my favorite of the bunch. I do like the time period. I do like the sitcom section of it. I think they did the 90s. I'm sorry, the modern 2000s really well with the Modern Family looks and everything. So that was entertaining. I like that. I thought. And none of this is spoilery yet, but you have Wanda doing her best Claire Dunphy from Modern Family, and doing that really, really well, oddly too well. But just that section of the story was flat. What was happening with Vision wasn't very compelling for me. Honestly, what was compelling was the star of the show was Monica and Agnes. They really stole it for us for reasons that we'll bring up later on in the recap. But what did you think, man?
I'm kind of with you on everything that you just touched on. I wasn't overly impressed with this episode. It's going to happen. There's going to be a time when it's just not going to be, wow, what's going on? And the big
Sure.
part about this was there wasn't that cliffhanger type ending. The information was kind of just dull. The stimuli that we got from this was just not there like we have in previous episodes. But they did, executed everything else well, as they have with all the formalities of every era of like the comedy that they're doing, the Modern
Sure.
Family, the intro, everything they hit on, all the sides. It was great. It was a wonderful episode in that regards.
Yeah.
But hopefully we're going to get more in the last 2 episodes, and also wasn't longer. I thought it was going to be like an hour, and kind of disappointed on that. But
That's
if you
the internet strikes again. Sometimes the internet says things and it doesn't come true. I fell for it as well.
damn you, internet.
There were inklings that the Lord and Savior Kevin Feige had said himself that the last 3 episodes were going to be an hour apiece, but that apparently was not true. But hopefully the last 2 episodes we get some. So there were some interesting tidbits that were brought up a while ago in interviews with Wanda herself. She had mentioned that total WandaVision was going to be about 6 hours. So if that is the case with the amount of time that we've used up with these 35 to 40 minute episodes, I think the longest episode was about 42, 43 minutes. That would make the next 2 episodes be about an hour or so, about 50, 55 minutes a piece, if what she said is true. So that's kind of what the internet's hinging on, because I got to tell you, these 38-minute episodes, if I have a beef with this show, it's that it's so fast. It's way, way too quick. It's great. What's there is great, but just 38 minutes is just, I want more. That's just a sign of a great show. I just want more. And I was talking with my girlfriend. I said, so far in 2021, the worst 3 words all year long: please stand by. Because every time I say it, I'm like, no, I don't want this. I want it to keep going. So, sign of a good show. That's a good problem to have, I guess. But hopefully the next 2 episodes are longer.
This one is not an hour, so there you go. However, and not a spoiler alert, but every episode this season has not had it. This one did. So if you have not watched the episode yet, there is a post-credit scene. So make sure that you watch afterwards. With that being said, here we go into the spoilers.
Full spoilers.
Now we're going to start kind of going into the episode and breaking down these arcs that we have on what's going on and transpiring between these characters in episode 7. And with that, Travis, go ahead and lead us off with your first arc that you're kind of wanting to talk about today, and let's discuss, how it how you saw it play out.
Yeah, so I mean, the different character arcs, like some were great, some weren't. Let's start with the ones that really weren't, that really didn't amount to anything yet. There's some promise there though. So we started off with the sword base, and Hayward. They escaped Wanda's expansion of the Hex and made it to like their secondary forward operating base. And then really all we get from him is just they mention that they have a specific type of strike, some operation that they're going to be performing really, really soon, like imminent. They said it's in the show. They said it's happening tonight or today. So
Yeah.
something's happening. Probably they're going to try to attack the Hex and break into it and get Vision. It's clear from a conversation between Jimmy and Monica that Hayward, in the cataract operation they were doing there in the sword base was to weaponize Vision to, find a way to do that Tony Stark thing, build a suit of armor around the world because, Thanos already happened. The snap happened. Everybody lived through that. It all is a part of this timeline. So they are looking into trying to find ways to do it. Now, does this make Hayward a bad guy in general? Maybe not, probably not. Maybe an antagonist still, an antagonist for our heroes, but probably not a bad guy as some people were kind of assuming. He's just a dick, right?
Yeah, he is definitely a dick, and luckily he was a very small dick in this episode because it was very short. They were only in it for maybe like 3 minutes, if that, 2 minutes, and that was done. But yeah, it does go on the lines that they were trying to use him as a weapon, and sword. Kind of like you just alluded to. These people, they went through the snap. They've seen like the Civil War happen, all this destruction, and as Hayward said in here before, you're backing and your bleeding heart towards all these soups is obviously fogging your judgment when you're talking to Monica Rambeau. And so there is that division probably going on in society between soups or superpowered humans and everything versus regular society, and there's now the disdain there because of all the things that have happened due to them because of them. So yeah, it's a kind of a weird
could
that transpires. Like, are they bad, or is it just a subject of what they've had to deal with? Everybody has to walk a mile in somebody's shoes.
So
that's yet to be determined. That was a very small part of the episode, and then it just goes from there. And that's it. We don't see sword for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, and another arc throughout the storyline that was a little disappointing for me. If we want to get all the disappointing stuff out of the way, honestly, how we followed Vision this time around. Vision, he was dying. We expanded the Hex, and now he was saved by that since he was back in, and he stumbles upon the circus, and who does he find? But he finds our favorite
Darcy,
physicist Darcy. She's a part of the circus, and then he speaks with her, and when he awakens her, like, she's so great. Like, Kat Dennings is fantastic in his role, and I'm not hating on her performance because I think how she performs in this episode, and Paul Bettany, how they perform is fantastic. I just didn't enjoy the
what they are performing
the content. It was just an exposition dump. Like, it's her telling Vision, keeping him up to speed on everything that happened to him, and I can understand that that's important, but like, cut away. Hey, let me tell you what happened to you after you died. Cut away. And then cut back after another scene. So that's what happened. That's everything. You don't have to go through it again. We've been there. We watched the whole thing. We watched hours and hours of movies that led to his death and the what happened in Endgame and what happened in Infinity War. We know all this stuff. So why do we have to sit here and waste 38 some of the 38 minutes, this precious time that we have to watch a show, just to see like regurgitation of like content that we already know for the sake of Vision finding out? Like, we know, just cut away and then come back. Okay, now I know the story. Like, a waste of time.
For the sake of this episode, it did bring out some 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 clarification because it got Vision to see what Wanda's been going through during all this time
Sure,
and
sure, sure.
gives him an idea of her perspective of what's happening. So I do understand that regards to it. Was it a great part? No. How they interacted, with the asides and talking about him being held up by Wanda
Hmm.
and all that kind of routinely going on. Yeah, that was that was pretty funny and on point with how the shows go
Right.
nowadays. Sitting out there with like a little
The
director's
sitcom part
chair.
was fine. Him doing the
Yeah,
sitcom
it was a great
stuff
part,
it
but yeah, the
was
content
great.
was pretty throwaway.
Yeah.
It wasn't really prevalent to what was happening in the episode and moving forward. So yeah, I'm on the same there with you too. Like I said, this episode was not one of my favorite ones. It was still good. Everything still like binds together, but I guess I had so much hope for this episode to
Right.
bring in some things, and it didn't happen, which I think kind of leads into our next part of this, which is going to be we had Vision, we have Darcy in their little side escapade, and it ends with Vision realizing, hey, I can do whatever. I don't have to be here right now. Takes off the microphone. This is ridiculous and flies away.
Hmm.
Then we got, we have Monica Rambeau, we have Wu, and of course her astro engineer friend that she meets up with, which ends up being Major Gooden, which this kind of threw me off. I was just like, who? And maybe
So
somebody educate me. I went looking online, I didn't see anything.
yeah.
So I'm guessing this is something from Captain Marvel I did not pick up on, or this
Mm,
is something that we're going to get in Captain Marvel 2. I guess we're going to find out, but I was disappointed because there was no Reed Richards.
I'm still on the fence that whether or not we've seen the astrophys or the what is it, the aerospace engineer. I'm on the
Interesting. Yeah.
fence because like there was too much of a buildup for a couple of episodes. She even specifically calls
Mhm.
him out being male. Like she does that
Yeah.
once or twice. She calls him out for being male. And then this was disappointing because the majority of the Monica Rambeau stuff in this episode is fantastic, except for the very beginning when it seems to be zero payoff for the aerospace engineer. So that's why I'm thinking that maybe there is more to this
This is
character.
just the delivery system and not who actually made it for her.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There may be more to this. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Whether it's Reed Richards or the internet's thinking Blue Marvel, which would also be cool. Monica
Just
has history
something.
with him.
Expected it to be something.
Yeah, it just ended like if it was another character that it wasn't Reed Richards, yeah, there would have been some disappointment there, but at least we would have had an answer. There was just no answer because now we're sitting here thinking, are we still going to get the engineer? Was that the engineer? I thought it was supposed to be a guy. Like, what's going on here? So,
It's okay if it's a lady. Lady engineers are awesome and are probably better than most men, but this was
probably
not who I was looking for.
not who we were looking for. Yeah, that was disappointing. But they do deliver a vehicle, which also ended up kind of being pointless. Like, this was supposed to
Very
be the thing that
pointless.
saves them, and it doesn't work.
Fell
Immediately,
flat.
it doesn't work. And all she had to do was just kind of walk in. Now, this is when Monica's arc starts to really pick up and get interesting, because she actually can make it through based on how her cells have been changed on a molecular level, and now she is able to use these newfound powers. So now a third time going into the hex. Going in and out of the hex, it now fully activated her power. So now she is photon / spectrum. So this is exciting. We now get more superpowers in this superhero show to interact with the rest of the characters and stuff. So I'm excited for Monica, and her story then begins to intersect with Wanda later on, which we'll get to later. But from this point out in the show, I love the episode. The setup was really slow, really quiet. But
A quick aside, something I never get about superheroes, or at least most superheroes, man, they get these powers and ability and they don't ever question it. Like she does, lands down with that Stan's power emits from her. She doesn't question what just happened. She's just like, oh yeah, bitch. Bad.
right.
I don't know. If that was me in that place, that would have happened. I'm like, oh snap. You seen that shit, son?
Badass.
But I don't know.
Mailman. Hey, mailman. You see that shit? Like, I would have
Yeah, right. The
given the mailman a
mailman.
reason to be there. So we'll get to him later.
saying.
Um,
That is the most important part of the episode.
right. So then we get to the core of this entire episode, and we get to the main show, the things that's going on with Wanda, right? We get the intro to the show, which kind of themes off of a great little TV show that only got a couple of seasons that I'm sad got canceled. Happy Endings. Really, really cool intro there. But then the rest of the show is clearly Modern Family. And they did a bang up job with this, because like my only gripe is that we don't get the whole family together. Vision, Wanda, the kids. I feel like similar to last week, everybody was split up and you missed that family dynamic, which has been the best part of these sitcoms.
And this one's divided even further because even the kids leave.
Yeah. So even the kids are gone too. I did like Wanda's.
Well, that's what she alluded to in the very beginning of the episode, though, was I want a day to myself.
I did like, for me, and I'm going to ask you what you thought about it too, but I actually did like Wanda's position in this episode, because she's been dealing with grief the entire time. You know, we've seen a lot of the different
for some time now.
Yeah, we've seen the different stages of grief that she's been going through. We've seen bargaining, we've seen anger, we've seen all these different maybe not all of them, but a lot of these different stages. And this was interesting because this was flat out depression. This was the first time we actually got to see depression. She wanted to be alone. She didn't want to be bothered. She has a responsibility to these kids, and she couldn't even do that. She just wanted to hide under the hexagon blanket, the bubble of the hexagon blanket, which I thought was a nice little touch there. And so I appreciate this. Everybody's been depressed before. Everybody watching this, and us too, we've gone through that. So I can really appreciate. I thought this was one of the more humanizing episodes for Wanda, because, you know, when you're like this, you do feel like everything that you've built becomes unraveled. You feel like the walls start coming down, you know, metaphorically speaking. And that starts happening to her in this episode. Like, her hex starts reverting back to like the old 70s, 80s, and 60s and 50s items. Like the fireplace changes from modern to the 50s. It starts unraveling around her in her documentary style
and regressing.
Yeah, she starts acknowledging that and everything like that. She's disheveled. She feels terrible. It's depression, and I love this arc. Her getting into this arc, because it's the one thing that's kind of been missing with her. Like, she's gone through hell, and now we finally get that. So I like this for her. What did you think about this part of Wanda's section of the episode?
Well, I'm going to say that I agree with everything that you mentioned right there. And I'm going to spend this moment to actually talk about the commercial that leads right into that.
It does,
the Nexus, depression commercial, where, it says, do you want to, once again, it kind of alludes to that, getting away, facing your truths, facing yourselves. So it really goes into that. Of course, the Nexus, being like the interdimensional, crossroads for what's kind of going on in this world right now, from what we're gathering. So it was a cool little commercial, in lieu of all these commercials that we get nowadays, where it's constant, like medications and things like that, talking about depression,
I got
anxiety.
that too. Yeah.
So it's that modern commercial as well that relates to everything that's happening and what she's experiencing right here in the show. And it's once again, really great commercial, a lot easier to break down than Yo Magic, which I still didn't get many responses from people. So that's still up in the air, but it's all going to come together soon. We only have 2 episodes left after this, but Wanda, this whole entire breaking down, we've been saying it since the very beginning. She has been losing it. And now we see, like I said, it's regressing. She, definitely going through all depression, and it's letting her out now. And we see it, and she's actually feeling it and talking about it and discussing it with the camera, which leads to a really weird scene where she's talking about it just doesn't make sense to me anymore. And then it says, do you think that you deserve this?
Like an outside
she looks
voice
at the camera
from like the crew.
And she said, you're not supposed to just talk, because that doesn't happen in any of the mockumentaries, right? So really weird that happens. And then that's when we actually get the cutscene for the commercial. But yeah, it was very interesting. And this goes into Wanda not being in full control, and there's something else that is controlling this, because she does not have control over what's happening. Right. She has an influence on it, yes,
sure,
but not full control. And we start seeing why, with I think kind of the biggest part reveal for the most part of this episode.
Well, yeah, and before the reveal happens, and you alluded to, like, she needed time away. She needed time for herself. So this ended up being one of the more split episodes in regards to, that family dynamic not being there. And she gets separated from the kids because Agnes comes in, and who ends up being a huge part of the remainder of this episode. Agnes comes in and takes the kids away and gives her a free mommy day, a day to herself.
Hmm.
And then the kids are eventually they get a little bit extra screen time with Agnes, and we get the first sign that, hey, all these things that we were assuming about Agnes is probably right, because Tommy, for the first time, can't hear anything. He can't like read minds. He can't hear the voices anymore when he's around Agnes or when he's in her
She's
house and
so
everything like
quiet.
that. She's extremely quiet, which I thought was a very, very chilling line, which was really, really cool. That chilling line, I think, feeds into the end of the episode, because the last few minutes are actually like they talk about Doctor Strange in a Multiverse of Madness being the first Marvel horror movie. And I feel like we finally got the first little tidbits of that. Like it almost felt like Insidious, the movie Insidious, a little bit and everything. That really tense, scary horror, especially towards the end when we get more with Agnes and Wanda toward the end. So I think we're starting to get that a little bit, which was really cool. So yeah, we're getting towards like really the main climax of this episode, and it's when Monica, Wanda, and Agnes all cross paths. But really, one of my most exciting parts about this entire thing is we do see for sure 100% that Monica is getting her photon
Mhm.
slash spectrum powers, because Wanda's not happy seeing Monica there, and she goes directly to being angry again, because she warned her, like, I warned you before, do not come cross me again. And Monica doesn't hear that. She wants to help. She's a hero, and she's a hero
Yep.
in spirit. And then we also see that immediately she's a hero physically as well. I thought that
Yeah,
was really
and
cool.
Wanda's just blatantly, using her powers out in the open from the very beginning of the episode, letting Agnes in and then just using it outside in front of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even matter anymore. She's
No.
not trying to hide it. She doesn't care. Like she said, everything's meaningless. And then, as we said, that the damn mailman's outside, just watching all this happen.
Yeah,
Every time
after
something's going down, that mailman's there.
yeah, he's too pointless to show up in half the episodes, right? He's too pointless
Right.
until he's not pointless anymore. So something's up with him. If there's a candidate for this, for this mysterious Ralph that Agnes keeps talking about, I feel that he or the rabbit are the two main candidates for this Ralph character, I
That's
think.
that senior scratchy though. But yeah, she talks about Ralph all the time. Never sees him. He's never in any episode. There's no sign of this guy. Just her mentioning him. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be something more to that. Then of course Agnes is the one who comes and saves Wanda from, or not saves Wanda, but interjects and separates Wanda from Monica, because obviously since we first saw this interaction, Agnes does not want them around each other. So she brings her inside, once again, here to save the day as the gracious and wonderful neighbor that Agnes is.
Yeah. So I'm going to give Melissa a shout out here, because she called this out. She thought that Wanda seemed almost like an abused spouse, like almost like scared with Agnes's interjection in that. Like, Wanda is full fury, and then Agnes comes in, and then she like closes up and like lowers her head and like just gets really, really like, I don't know, like she just like kind of like sucks herself in and like almost like I can't do anything else anymore. I can't lash out right now. Like she almost felt afraid
Well,
to.
that
It
makes
was weird. Like
sense for what happens at the end of the episode.
yeah, yeah. I mean, clearly she doesn't know what's going to happen at the end of the episode, but yeah, it was an odd. Uh, I would be interested to know if it's not answered in further episodes. I'd be interested to know why Wanda played that scene that way when she showed up.
Yeah,
'Cause I
if it
just
doesn't
feel,
get answered, but I'm gonna say that it was answered right here for us in this episode.
you think?
And I'll explain if we'll go ahead and just say this because it's spoilers. Yeah, so Agnes ends up turning to be Agatha Harkness, which is a long running witch in the Marvel universe, and so she even mentioned you're not the only magic user here. And then as the episode's ending, we get Wanda walking downstairs into this dark cellar, as you said, that kind of horror feel to it,
Mm-hmm.
the dark vines like veins are going through everything. And we see these runes on the wall. We see these display cases with like magical items and everything. We see this magical book just humming with energy, which could allude to a lot of different
It's a couple of
Marvel,
big books.
scriptures and magical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not going to try to put any theory on what we think it is, but what the main part is that she gets down to the cellar. Agnes, or Agatha now as we can call her, comes out displaying her powers, and right there at the end, she's great to finally meet you, and then she kind of like snaps her fingers or wiggles them over or whatever at Wanda, and we see that power engulf her like we've seen Wanda do to people. So this is why I think that she balled up like that, and it rolls into like this spin-off type series of Agatha all along, saying that who she is. She was there the whole entire time manipulating things. She's had control over Wanda forcibly. So I think that when she stepped in to interject, she already knew that there was nothing that she could do. She needed to shut up.
Interesting.
That's what I think.
Interesting. So as we all, as you said, like this was the big reveal. Agatha Harkness is Agnes. We kind of knew that from the start with the brooch. We knew Agnes.
I mean, we've even slipped up calling her Agatha on this show.
Yeah, exactly.
We've called her Agatha a few times.
It was pretty obvious, Agnes being an amalgamation of Agatha Harkness. It was just right there. It was in our faces and everything. But I thought that the whole the end was great. Like I says, one of my favorite endings. I love the Munsters, like the tribute to the Munsters TV show for Agatha's theme song. And we saw a lot. So we saw that in the 50s and 60s. We saw the bottom half of her witch outfit, and then she transformed into her 50s/60s character and everything. It was walking into the house, smirking at the camera, doing great Catherine Hahn stuff. I mean, she was phenomenal in this episode. She sang the song, too. If you look in the credits, it says the song was sung by Catherine Hahn, so good on her. And then another scene was from the 80s. That was no, from the 70s. She was
70s.
She was mind controlling Herb,
touching Herb. Yeah.
And then in the 80s, this is the interesting one that I want to talk about. So she's sitting on the lawn in the 80s/90s as quote unquote Pietro is standing at the door, and she's flicking her fingers. There's a little bit of purple magic floating around them and everything. So let's stop here for a second and discuss this. So Pietro, what's his deal? Do you think that she conjured him? Do you think she pulled the Fox Quicksilver from Earth? Or do we think that this is just another placeholder person that she's completely she's created out of thin air? Like, what's your thought on this Quicksilver? Because Quicksilver can go a bunch of different ways.
I don't know, because we have seen him use super speed.
We have.
So so there's a question there, like there's a lot of things it could be. But it even gets deeper at the very end of this episode, where we see him again.
Yeah. So in the post-credit scene, Monica finds Agatha's house, and she finds the cellars. She sees some of the magic wiggly woos down in the cellar, and then Quicksilver's right
Snoopers
there.
Snoopers
be snooping. So he's there existing, and then when she turns around, her eyes aren't blue like her photon powers. Her eyes are purple, and she's getting the purple haze like Wanda did. So I think when we open up next episode, it's going to be Wanda and Monica are held captive, and Vision's got to come in and save the day, it seems.
Or does Vision team up with Quicksilver to Avengers, saving the day in the Hex?
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not
if
sure
it
about
is
Pietro.
Quicksilver indeed. Who is Pietro? Yeah, we don't know. We have no idea.
Yeah, I have no clue.
Or maybe they did pull a Quicksilver from another universe. Who knows? They're in the Nexus, supposedly.
Yeah, I think it only makes sense for this to actually be the Fox Quicksilver pulled from another universe at this point. At this point, I think it does. But then there's the Funko Pop toy that has him in quotes, so it
Pietro.
Yeah, so I don't know if that means it is him or not. Like it's so like we still have so much to find out about them. But
and none of my Funko Pops have quotation marks.
What's that?
Oh, what is that? That's just the internet being the internet.
It's the internet being the internet. There we go. Good job, internet. You've done it again. You fooled us again. Yeah, and then That's pretty much the end of the episode. Did we miss anything?
Yeah, man.
There?
So yeah, we know that Agatha's there. We get a post-credit scene, which is awesome. So I wonder if now every episode is going to have a post-credit scene for us.
If you're not going
We'll
to give us
see.
an
It was
hour,
just
at least
nice.
give us a post-credit scene every time.
Yeah, give us something. So yeah, that was it. Like I said, it was, there's a lot of things in there. There's a lot of things to unpack. Just wasn't the greatest episode. Some things really felt flat with it, but still wonderful content. Everything happens for a reason. So might not be the great one right now, but next week I might watch and be like, oh, that's why they did it this way. Who knows? We'll just sit back and admire in awe of their greatness.
Yep.
I'm still looking forward to Friday. So
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. Again, for me, I still like the episode. I love the ending. I just thought there was a lot of wasted space in between the margins a little bit. I thought.
Well, hey, how about you? What did you think about it? Did you like it? Did you love it? Do you agree with us? Tell us your thoughts.